Hey guys, I'm Sun. I'm a privacy and security researcher and recently became a YouTuber. Today's talk is going to be about privacy. Now, we are the product. That's something that you may have heard, and my research definitely confirms that that's true. Now, the interesting thing that I discovered while preparing for today's talk is we actually have been the product for quite some time, and that actually is traceable to the early days of radio and television, which brought me to question, what does radio and television have in common with Facebook and Gmail, for example? Well, the answer is quite obvious: ads. Both are designed to get our attention. Our attention is the product. Now, the question that really got me curious is what they don't have in common. And the answer is Facebook and Gmail are bidirectional. That means that the users are both content creators and content consumers. And that means that people are now sharing an increasing amount of very personal information on these platforms. Now, comparing this to the traditional business model of TV, for example, where Lady Gaga will be invited as the artist of the Super Bowl, well, putting together the halftime Super Bowl show is extremely expensive. It requires a stadium, an audience. It requires essentially millions and millions to produce the content. Compare this with the new social media business model, which, by the way, blows my mind. Well, a bunch of developers can create an app that will be used by billions of people and generate billions and billions in revenue. Now, looking at how, advertisements were actually targeted to users in the days of television, well, say Lily was watching Planet Earth, well, Lily was likely to be interested by anything related to the planet, perhaps animals, and that was it. So advertisers would place ads on content. Compare this with social media, where Facebook knows that Lily watched Planet Earth twice because she shared it. That Lily shared a YouTube link to Planet Earth with a few of her friends, Charles, Jenny, and John, and that Lily attended Earth Day manifestation in New York with her friend Jenny. That Lily is probably roommates with John because she actually lives in New York and they all use the internet from the same public IP address, and that Lily is in a relationship with Charlie, and Charlie actually donated to Greenpeace. What does that mean for advertisers? Well, that means that Lily will likely vote for a specific political party if she's targeted with pro-environment content, and it actually also means that she's gay. That blows my mind. So back to this initial idea, if something is free, we are likely the product. Well, what else is free? Now, preparing for this talk made me realize that the real question is, what isn't? Now, if we think about Facebook, which is free, well, Instagram, Messenger, and WhatsApp, all of this is also free. Besides Gmail, well, Chrome, Google, Google Docs, YouTube, Google Maps, Waze, Google Pay, all free and all owned by Alphabet. Now, in the context of Microsoft, well, Microsoft Bing, Edge, Skype, LinkedIn. If you're a developer, you probably know about Visual Studio Code, GitHub, NPM. All of this stuff is free. And then there's Snapchat and TikTok. Whew. Now, to make things more confusing, privacy-conscious apps that I actually recommend to my viewers, such as Firefox, DuckDuckGo, and Signal, all of those are also free, which blows my mind and clearly blows the minds of pretty much everyone, which leads people to just decide to trade their privacy because, well, we live full lives. We don't have time to worry about all of this stuff. A question that I'm asked all the time is why should we care? Why should we care? It's so much information. I have nothing to hide. Those are all things that I hear all the time. Well, let's look at 3 case studies. As you may be aware, Edward Snowden, he was a contractor for the NSA, leaked a whole bunch of documents that revealed that the NSA and the CIA have backdoor accesses to all of those data sets. So all of those emails that we're sending on Gmail, I know I'm not, but anyways, all of those things that are being shared on Facebook, all of those things or conversations that are happening on Skype, all of this stuff is accessible by nation state surveillance programs. And to make things worse, there's also this alliance between the United States of America and 13 other countries, which forms what we call the 14 Eyes. And what they are doing is that they're all using their own tapping devices to tap the internet backbones when data is flowing between countries. And what you can see here, well, that's a map of the transoceanic lines, fiber lines that are connecting continents together. That's where the data is flowing, and that means that there's a few points that can be tapped that will intercept huge amounts of data. Now, if that's not enough, another person leaked information about a scandal that's called the Cambridge Analytica scandal. And the Cambridge Analytica scandal is a way that this special political data analytics firm in the UK was using an app that was installed by 50 million Americans that allowed them to get very personal insights into how those Americans think, therefore leading to micro-targeting them with ads in the context of the Trump election, not this one, the one before. And we thought that everything would change at that point in time, but actually very little has. That means that all of this information that we are sharing becomes information that political parties can use to target us and try to manipulate us. Now, if that's not enough, we can have a look at what's happening in China. So China has deployed huge systems of facial recognition to be able to follow citizens around. There are cities where if you cross the street at a red light, you are fined and the money is withdrawn from your bank account. So essentially, all citizens are ranked and labeled and tracked throughout what they do in the physical world and on the internet. And to make matters worse, the Great Firewall of China will actually censor what kind of information they can see. That leads me to say that I care about privacy because I believe in freedom and democracy, that I am totally uncomfortable with the fact that my conversations, interests, relationships, and whereabouts are surveilled. I mean, that freaks me out. So here are a few steps that you guys can follow if you want to reclaim some of your privacy. Step 1 is consciously choose apps. Why is an app free? There are a few business models that can explain why things are free. The first one is open source. If the product is developed by the community for the community, well, that explains why it's free. Other things are advertising, I should have said, based. Usually that means that there's a lot of data mining that's happening, unfortunately. Then there are the freemium apps. Those are apps that you can start using for free, but then you're encouraged to upgrade. And there are in-app purchases. So that's how TikTok works, for example. And then there's kind of more obscure business models through partnerships. So that's how WhatsApp actually earns its revenue right now. Although, more on that in a second. Google Pay and Firefox, if you don't know, Firefox is actually owned by Mozilla, which is a nonprofit, and Mozilla is mostly funded by Google, so Google can set Google search as the default search engine in Firefox. Now, looking at this, we could think that, if we're not in the advertising line, we're okay. But the truth is, a lot of those businesses will do a lot of data mining as well. So usually a business can have more than one business model to make things, again, more complicated. But we need to ask ourselves why something is free. Then we need to ask ourselves, what is the governance of that specific project? And that is pretty interesting when we're looking at WhatsApp versus Signal. Both pretend to be, I'm taking this back. Both, in theory, use end-to-end encryption. Actually, WhatsApp uses the Signal protocol. But then when I'm looking at those two options, which on the surface may look the same, if we look at their governance, I am totally going for Signal. So one is owned by, Facebook, which is run by Mark Zuckerberg, and the other is Signal is run by Moxie, who's a cypherpunk who really believes in privacy. We need to ask ourselves who are running those companies and why. And then we need to figure out how much data is being collected and why. And there are things that we can do in our smartphones or in app configurations to decide what we're sharing. Sometimes we have no control, but at least we need to be conscious about this and try to share as little as possible, only what's necessary to benefit from the product. Now, the next thing that we can do is learn as much as we can about technology. So we're just going to peek at the rabbit hole right now because I'm running out of time, but email is not private. When you send an email to someone, that email is stored on your email provider's servers and on the recipient email provider's servers. When on those servers, it's in clear text. So you can imagine email being the same as sending a postal card. Anyone in between can likely read the message. Another misconception is that private mode when you're browsing is private. Private mode is not private at all from the outside world. It's just private between users of the same computer. Another misconception is that VPNs will make people anonymous. VPNs do not make anyone anonymous. It just moves the threat model of being surveilled from the internet service provider to the VPN provider. So we need to choose VPN providers wisely. Another thing that we always need to keep in mind is that the clipboard, when we're copy pasting stuff, that is shared among apps. And that was really alarming when we learned that TikTok was essentially capturing all of this. So I understand that all of this is a lot. Learning about this is a lot. And that's why I'm really trying to share as much as I can on my channel. But if you don't have time to learn all of this, there are a few things that you can do. First things first, please use a browser that is open sourced and that does not track its users, such as Firefox when well configured. Then using DuckDuckGo instead of Google or Bing is a great way to make sure that those searches are not surveilled. And one last thing here is using Signal for messaging or phone calls when the subject matter is private. Signal uses something called end-to-end encryption, meaning no one can look at this content except you and the recipient or someone that physically compromises your devices. So yeah, thanks for caring. I think together we can really bring change in the technology landscape. We can rewire our minds to be comfortable with the fact that paying for an app makes total sense, that paying for a web service makes total sense. And together we can force those companies to change their behavior and start putting technology to the service of humans and not the other way around.